Fortunately, the clinic's leadership was willing to confront data suggesting weak performance and then create the imperative to learn and to improve. But just learning, idea brokering, is not enough to realize actual improvement. Organizations also need closure to make the better ways of doing things the new local norm. Here again, Boissy and her team sensed that clinicians need a structured framework for approaching interactions with patients, and that this framework could only be spread via trusted colleagues. One of my favorite parts of this book is the description by Dr. Edward Benzel, then chair of neurosurgery, of his initial reaction to the request that he become a trained facilitator for the communications initiative. Benzel's response was to try to get the work assigned to a young woman who had recently been recruited to the neurosurgery group. Boissy and her colleagues knew that the framework they were advancing would spread much faster if well-known and trusted authority figures were pushing it. Benzel relented, as did many of his more senior colleagues, and the clinic avoided one of the most common mistakes in dissemination of best practices, which is to take the path of least resistance and focus efforts on clinicians who have less influence on their colleagues. When it comes to making a new and better way of doing things a social norm, the accumulation of social capital blurs into social network science. Here, organizations may benefit from the work of researchers such as Yale's Nicholas Christakis, author of Connected: The Surprising Power of Our Social Networks and How They Shape Our Lives. They have shown how values, for example, good communication being essential to professional excellence, can spread from person to person to person. Financial incentives can capture clinicians' attention briefly, but to achieve real and sustained improvement, social norms must be strong enough to exert peer pressure upon clinicians to be reliably excellent with every single patient. It is worth noting that the Cleveland Clinic experience demonstrates that brokerage and closure are not two sequential phases. Both must go on continuously and indefinitely. The clinic has been modifying its program right from the start, and we can expect it to have evolved a year or two from now. The learning will never stop, nor should the work to achieve closure by standardizing best practices. Thomas H. Lee, M.D., M.Sc., Chief Medical Officer, Press Ganey, Professor of Medicine, part-time, Harvard Medical School, Professor of Health Policy and Management, Harvard School of Public Health. Preface. My pager went off before I even made it through the hospital doors. Returning the call, I was greeted with, "Hey, good morning. It's Joe in the ER. Your patient in bed 5 is asking for Dilaudid. I don't want to give it to her, but it's up to you." I didn't know the patient in bed 5 and communicated that as soon as I met her, I'd be happy to treat her pain with something else. Shortly thereafter, I was rounding on the neurology inpatient service, and the residents told me about a young woman, the patient in bed 5, who had been admitted overnight for 2 months of head pain with innumerable requests for Dilaudid. Their frustration and annoyance were palpable. They described treating the patient with IV steroids, magnesium, compazine, Toradol, morphine, and Dilaudid in a span of a few hours since her admission, as well as starting prophylactic medications to prevent her head pain. I could see the costs compounding in my head. In addition, she had been admitted to our hospital for 3 months the year prior. I took a deep breath and entered the room. "Good morning, Ms. Hyde. I'm Dr. Boissy, the neurologist in charge of your care while you're here. I'm so sorry you spent the night in the ER and are here." "Thanks." A somewhat groggy young woman with multiple tattoos rolled onto her back to speak with me. She had her forearm over her eyes and wouldn't look at me. "I'm wondering if you can tell me about yourself." "My pain is 10 out of 10, mainly on the right side." "Thank you for telling me. What I meant was about you as a person." "Oh." She shot me a surprised look as her arm came down from her face. "Okay, well, I live at home with my parents. It's not that great because we don't really get along. They don't think anything is wrong with me." "I'm sorry to hear that." "It's okay, I'm used to it. I also work as a pharmacy tech." "That must be interesting. Have you had to miss work because of everything going on?" "Yeah." "I bet you miss it. This pain that you're having seems to be really impacting you. Most people have ideas about what's happening with them. What do you think?" "Well, I think I either have MS, multiple sclerosis, or parasites. I read about them online."